Hello and welcome to the 9th video in my series of 3ds Max tips and tricks. In this one I'll be going over materials and textures. Okay, let's make a plane so we've got something to texture. Put a material on. I'm going to open up the materials palette by hitting M on the keyboard. This will bring up the default compact material editor. I'm going to be using for this video the slate material editor. I think it's really really neat way of using materials. To get to that, go to Modes, Slate Material Editor, and I should point out that there's nothing in Slate Material Editor you can't do in the Compact Editor. First tip I'm going to suggest to you is to use Photoshop documents, PSD files for your textures until kind of the last minute while you're still working on them. There's no reason kind of not to. Okay, one of the nice things about the Slate Editor is I can drag and drop a texture into it, and I can do several. Quite quickly, so I could do normal and specular, but I'm just going to work with a diffuse for now. Another way of getting a map up is to right click in this area and go to maps and choose bitmap, and it'll then ask you to browse for it, but this works for me. We want to connect our map up to a standard material, and these are the sort of nodes, and this is a node based material solution, so just click and drag and release. It'll then give you a new drop-out menu. We want materials, standard material, and then ask which slot you want it in. I want it in diffuse color slot, and I'm going to have to zoom out because I'm not working at decent resolution, so this might become a little hard to read. I apologise for that. If at any time you want to change any of these materials, you just simply double-click on it, and it'll bring it up here. I'm going to get rid of the navigator. Probably don't need that, and you can change it right here, but for now we'll just go with what we've got. We've already got our plane selected, so I'm going to right click and assign material to selection, and it'll go grey because I haven't told it that I want to see it in my viewport. So I'll right click and show hardware map in viewport. Now it'll show up in my viewport. Okay, so we can see it's a kind of it's a pretty plain grass texture. I'll get rid of the grid. Nothing desperately special about it. I'd like to show you now a composite map. That is where you put two or more maps together, and I'm going to do this actually both from the same original texture, but I'm going to change the colours of them, so I'll be compositing a sort of a fresh grass with a sort of dying grass, just to give it a bit of colour variation. Okay, so to do that I'm going to just drag out to a different sort of output, and I'm going to go under Maps. I'm going to choose Composite, and this is different from the composite material that I showed you in the wires. Composite map is slightly different, so I want it to be in layer 1. Okay, good. And we don't want this anymore to be going to diffuse color. We want to use the composite map as our diffuse color, and that will now replace the line that we had there. Okay. To go into the composite map, we're going to double click on it, add a new layer, and we want to go in this same map but color corrected for two different kind of colors. So I'll drag out to a map color correction, and that'll go into my layer 1, and I'll do the same thing for a different color correction, and this will go into my layer 2. Now if you want to preview any of your maps at any time, just right click and open preview window, and you can see we've got a nice preview of our grass. I'm going to make this full screen. I don't think we really need to see what's going on just yet. As long as we've got the preview up, we can kind of see what's going on a bit. So this is our composite map, and at the moment we can see it's displaying. Well, we haven't changed either of these yet, but you'll have to take my word from me. It's displaying the topmost layer, the one in layer 2. So let's color correct these. I'll open these as preview window, and you can see it's composite and color correction, so we sort of know what's going on a bit. And I'll have this one open here and this one open here. Okay, so 3 and 4 top and bottom. Double click on this color correction. For this one I want this to be a kind of fresh grass, so I'm going to hue shift it a little bit, and you can see it's updating straight away. If you untick auto, then you'll have to click on update. So we can see it's getting a lot greener now. I'm going to saturate it a little bit more too, so really over-exaggerate it a little bit. Okay, that'll do for that one. And this bottom one here, I'm going to shift it the other way a little bit, make it look a little bit dead by desaturating it too. and we'll reduce the brightness a little bit as well, and perhaps even the contrast down just a smidge. Okay, that's looking about good. So we've got our fresh grass and our dried grass. Let's now open the preview for the composite, and you can see that the dried grass is what's showing over the top, and that's because right now it's completely replacing the one above it. You can use a different blending technique, but we're going to be sticking with normal, which just sort of slaps over the top of it, and we'll be using a mask to hide certain parts of the dead grass, which will then end up showing through to the fresh grass underneath. Okay, so to make a mask, I'm going to use a noise mask. You could make your own texture to do this, but this is just as easy as anything else and usually gives an okay result. So I'm going to drag that out now to the mask, and we'll see this will update now. And it pretty much just goes to almost like the average of the two, and that's because if we look at the noise map that we've got here, zoom in a bit there, we can see it's a fairly uninteresting kind of grey, and there's a little bit of variation but not a whole heap. So we want to pump up that variation, so double click on the map here. I'm going to change the thresholds so that we end up with a slightly whiter whites and blacker blacks a little bit. I could even colour correct this noise map if I wanted, but I should have the controls that I need here. I'm going to change to fractal, and probably that's okay. I'm going to make the size a little larger. Let's go with 120, just so there's not quite so much going on. And this is looking nice. However, there's sort of almost no point to just changing this, because we could have just changed our texture. And this is where the really powerful bit comes in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tile this texture now 4 times by 4 times. And what we've got now, I'm going to make this much larger so you can hopefully see a bit better, is we've got this really high quality, nice sharp details, but lots of colour variation at almost no expense. This isn't an expensive technique in a real-time solution. So this is a quite cheap way to make your terrain look, to give a lot of variation to your terrain without needing to make a really large texture. This texture is only I think it's 512 by 512, but I could have made it even smaller than that, and it would still work pretty well. And of course you can use this with 2 different textures. A really great solution for making terrain is to use sort of grass and dirt, so where grass isn't almost, and that can look really nice too. Okay, let's say you've started changing some of the parts of your material and it's not updating. If you jump into any map that you've got any bitmap, so this one here, if you click reload, it'll force it to reload the texture from your drive. This, particularly if you're working on a network, it will not like to do that automatically, so you can reload it by just clicking there. And if you think it's the wrong image or you're not sure what it's showing, click on view image and you can see the image on its own, and you can check that that's looking as you're expecting it to look. If you're troubleshooting any materials, things aren't behaving the way you want, jump into the material, and let's say you've got several maps going on here. You've got a diffuse, a couple of specular colour, specular level, maybe a glossiness, and a bump, and something's really bright white and you can't understand why. Try turning these on and off by unticking them, and in this way you can sort of identify exactly the one that's not behaving as you'd expect it to. And once you've figured out what's not behaving as you'd expect it to, go into it and start sort of breaking it down. And this is just a general good troubleshooting practice, trying to find the source of the problem before you try and fix it. Quite a common mistake that's made is the diffuse texture, which has an alpha channel on it. If it's using alpha source image alpha, and really you don't want to use the alpha in the diffuse slot, change it to none. If you've got a mask, it's only going to be one channel, so you want to make sure that it's getting the mono channel from, if you want it from the RGB, and if you want it from the alpha. Okay, let's make this a little bit smaller now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to break up my plane into I'll break it into 9. There we are. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make these sub-objects of the main object have a different material, and the way we do that is using a multi-sub-object material. So I'll select these ones. I'll just make this a little larger. We go down to material IDs, and I'm going to set the ID onto 2. And now, because we haven't got anything in ID 2, that won't behave any differently, but you can see these materials are using ID 1, these materials are using ID 2. So let's set up our multi-sub-object material so that it can actually do something with those. So I'm going to stay in the slate material editor. Let's say this is the material we want in our first one. I'm going to drag this down now to materials, multi-sub-object. And this, for some reason, in the slate editor makes 10 of the damn things, which is really silly. So I'm just going to zoom way out, and you can delete things from the slate editor by just hitting delete. So there we go, that's got rid of all but this one. I don't know why it does that, it really annoys me. So we're going to set the number of IDs, we only need 2, so let's just set that down to 2, and there we have our, I'll zoom in a bit, our multi-sub-object material. So this we want to be on ID 1, and on ID 2 we're going to make a, honestly this doesn't really matter what we do here, let's make this just so it looks really different. Now of course what I just did there was a rookie mistake. I tried to grab a map into a material slot, and of course you can't do that, so I need to make a material first. So I'll make that a standard material, and that can go in the diffuse color slot. So this now is just this is what the material looks like, and we'll drag this into here. Tidy this up a bit. And you'll notice that I'm trying to use, if I've got my bitmap, rather than loading it in 5 times, I'm trying to use the same one and drag it out to different places. This is really good because, one, it'll save on your memory a little bit, but also if you want to make changes to bitmap, then you only have to, or to the noise map, you only have to change it in one place. So dead convenient. Now we've got that set up, with a bit of luck. Oh, of course, me being silly here, I haven't actually assigned the multi-sub-object. Currently I've only assigned the material, the material 25 to the object. I'm now going to right click and assign the multi-sub-object to the object. And right now this isn't showing, this is showing up as grey because I haven't told this material to show in hardware. And with a bit of luck, there we go. I guess that's what my noise must look like. Okay. So that's a multi-sub-object material. Allows you to. This is really useful for if you've got objects with different parts, and you might want to use a different texture for those different parts, or you've got a whole scene and one object needs to use, say, bricks and wood, but so does another object. Rather than making lots of different textures, you can just reuse the same textures and just use multi-sub-objects to do that. Okay, I'm just starting from scratch again. I'll make another plane and bring up my material editor. I'll load in that same texture again. I'm dragging it from off screen, so just bear with me here. And make this bigger. I'm just going to make this a dead simple standard material again. Nothing fancy. And assign this to my selection and make it show in the viewport. Okay. I'm going to basically artificially create a problem for my object. I'm going to make a seam that I want to then figure out a way to fix. Okay, so I'm going to unwrap and I'm going to edit this and going to pick these faces, break them, down right click menu, and slide them down. Okay. Which we'll see now if I come out of this, get rid of the grid, has made a seam. Can you see that now? Here, where the texture doesn't line up. Okay, so how do we get rid of that line? We're going to use the viewport canvas, which essentially allows us to paint on the model that we've got in front of us. So Tools, Viewport Canvas, and I'm going to bring it over to the left, so it's a little bit easier over there. And if we right now it's got paint on already selected. That's because I've just used it, but if you go into, it'll probably ask you to pick a map. Click on the button and choose the map that you want to paint on. You have to have the object selected first. Okay, if we go into the brush and open the layers dialog, which might come up for you automatically, you can see we can add new layers and paint on top of those, and erase away from them, just like you would in Photoshop. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use the clone brush on the bottom layer. Just close the layers dialog, I don't need that anymore, to try and get rid of these seams. So hold down Alt and choose a point on your object that you want to copy from, and simply sort of drag where you want to paint. Now this is obviously making, I've got a very hard setting. I might change that down to maybe 85. Oops. We want to keep it fairly hard, otherwise you get sort of blurry textures, and try and paint in a slightly non-uniform way, so just kind of it's hiding the line that you've got, and you could try just sort of stamping a little bit, but what I've got there is probably pretty good. And you can see we're hiding where the seam is. Little bits there. Good. I don't think we can tell where that is anymore. Maybe a little bit there. Nice. And if we now look at our texture, we can open the layers dialog and we can choose to save this as a PSD or save it as a flattened picture. Well, let's just save it out as a bitmap, and you can choose what you want to save it out as PNG. So let's save that to, I'll just save it to the desktop for now, so that I can show you what that looks like. I don't want them. I don't want them. And I've got them. I have bananas. I have all the bananas I'm going to need. You're just dumping your rubbish on me. You're dumping your rubbish on me. I bet they're going off as well, aren't they? Why would you buy bananas and not want them? Okay, so here's the texture opened up. You can see that the clone brush has its drawbacks. It kind of makes this a little bit muddy. Okay, the last part of this video I want to show you how to use the render to texture dialog, which allows you to create textures from high poly geometry to low poly geometry, or at least that's the most common use for it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a normal map and ambient occlusion for this box here, which is just a simple box, 6 sides, nothing complicated there, 12 triangles, from this high poly, which is 10,000 triangles with lots of sort of nice little details. Now this is about as far as you can really push normal maps, and you'll see when I do this, there's sort of limitations of normal maps, so I'll just proceed anyway. Now you have to have these absolutely lined up perfectly. I line them both up at 0, which is always a good idea. So they're perfectly on top of one another. Now the low poly I've labelled low, and if you get a bit lost, it's good to use the select from scene dialog so you don't click on the wrong one by accident. So with the low one selected, make sure that you've done a suitable unwrap. I'll show you what my unwrap looks like now. It's just 6 faces in the grid. I could have stretched these, but it's fine. This is just an example anyway. I'll collapse that back down. We then go apply a projection modifier. So projection. Under the reference geometry, we choose pick or pick list. I'm going to use pick list so I can see the list. I'll choose high. So there it is. That's the geometry that we'll be sort of baking down to, or baking down from. The cage is what sort of encompasses all of your geometry. The further you push the cage, the more sort of pulled apart the geometry the angles become. So a small cage is preferable if possible, but to line this up properly, I'm going to go into I'll go into my left viewport. That seems to work fine, and I'll just I can keep pushing it, or what I'm going to do actually is because only the top needs really pushing, I'm going to expand this, click on cage, and I can select the points of my cage by hand. So choosing those verts there, I can drag those up there. So now it is encompassing all sides, and if I look at it from the left, it's fine. If I look at it from the front, it's all within there, so we shouldn't get any missing. In fact, I'll show you what missing looks like. I'm going to deliberately make this too small. Okay, we then open the render to texture dialog. That's rendering, render to texture 0. I tend to hit 0, which is just a bit easier. Mine's just come up off screen, so there it is. Make sure that you've got your low poly geometry selected. It does make a difference which one you've got selected, so just have that object selected. Normally this will not be ticked, so I'll just tick this now. This is, if you've got several projection modifiers, this is where you choose the one, and it's the name of the modifier. You can rename modifiers if you weren't aware. So often it will just be called projection if you haven't renamed it. We want to use channel 1 because we've already unwrapped it as we wanted to. You can use automatic unwrapping, but it's better off if you do it yourself. I'm undoing all my changes as I go along, so ignore when I don't tell you what I've done. We then add, and you get a choice of what type of map you want to generate. We're going to generate a normals map first of all, so add that. Choose where you want to save it to. So I'll just save mine out to here. It'll normally name it the name of your object and then normals map, so that's fine, and I'll be overwriting, that's not a problem. If you save with 32-bit Targa, you'll get all 4 channels. Okay, choose the resolution you want to do it at. I would strongly recommend you always do it at least twice as high resolution as you really need. The reason for that is because it doesn't kind of anti-alias in any way, which can often leave very sharp edges. So I'm going to go with a nice big 1024, even though I'm intending to scale this down to just 512. But it'll also show it looking a bit nicer too. That's good. Unfortunately this is too tall, so just scale it a little bit. And we scroll right the way to the bottom and make sure we've got everything set up. Now I'm in the habit of not bothering to output to my materials slots, but these options do allow you to put it straight into the material slot. I'm not going to do that, so I'm just going to hit render, and then that'll clog away. Previously I had another render there. And you'll think to yourself, or you might think, no, this doesn't look an awful lot like a normal map. And what you're being shown isn't a normal map. And it's only lit from certain sides, so you know, what's that all about? Honestly, I have no idea why it shows you this. Your actual normal map is where we've chosen the file path. So I have it in this folder here. Let me open that so you can see what that looks like. So there we go. This is our normal map. This is what a normal map looks like. If you're not aware of what a normal map kind of is, then on the different channels, if I show you one at a time, it's usually easier to explain it that way. On your red channel you have the X direction, so basically it's like lighting up from the right hand side. On the green channel you have your Y direction, which bits should be lit up if it's being lit from below. The blue channel you have height, or maybe that's cavity. I'm not really sure, if I'm honest with you, what goes on blue. And the last one's just an alpha. The red and the green are the important ones. But anyways, that's looking fine, so I'll go back out of that. And I'm going to make a new material, so we can see that in action. So M to bring up my materials palette. I'll use the slate material editor, and I'll just drag and drop from my folder. And I'll be making a normal bump map, and I'll close this. This can go into a standard material, into the bump slot. Okay, and we'll assign this now. We've already got our low selected, so that's fine. I'll assign it to the selection and make sure that it's showing hardware map and viewport, and then you can see the effect of the normal map in real time. And with a bit of luck, we'll go back into perspective. We don't want wireframe. I'll just drag this out to the side, and you can see we're done. What has happened though is our nice rounded bit at the top. Remember I said I made the cage too small. That's been cut off. Another thing that I'm noticing as well, this is very weak. I don't know why the default is set to 0.3 for bumps. 1 is usually correct if you've done it from a high poly to low poly bake. So do make sure that you get your cage set up right, otherwise you'll have these problems. And like I said, there's no kind of anti-aliasing, which is why it's always nice to do it at twice the resolution and scale it down in Photoshop. But you can see quite effectively if I turn off the bounding box, the edges are looking kind of rounded, not quite so hard, particularly if you zoom out a little bit. And I'll remind you again, this is just a 12 triangle box, nothing fancy. And the light, as I move the camera around, you can see it lighting up different parts of the object, and it's quite believable. But like I say, it does have major limitations. Where I was pulling my cage around, I've gone and broken what should be a lip here, so that's not showing. And if you look at it from the side, then if it was this geometry and we looked at it from the side, let me hide the low poly, then we wouldn't be able to see this edge, this face here. But obviously, because it's only flat, we can see that face, and it's just very, very black. So that's not strictly correct. And another thing that's happened is it's probably best to be seen in the top viewport. Do you see these are no longer in the very middle of these circles, the wells? The screws aren't in the wells in the middle, whereas they were in that one. That's because it's projected it kind of outwards, so they all get pushed away from the middle. So there are these limitations of baking high polys down to low polys, and in a sort of real world situation, I probably would have liked to have seen some relief on the top of this. You'll notice that this is sticking up. Anything that's sticking up and affects the silhouette is always nice to model if you can. Things which don't stick up, things which go in, aren't going to affect the silhouette, so the silhouette of both of these is the same from the side, but it's just this top that's wrong. But that said, things that go in should get hidden in some ways from some views, so something like this wouldn't have even been expensive to model in. So be reasonable about it. This is really as far as you're going to push it. Well, it's too far, but it's pretty cool. The last thing I want to show you is ambient occlusion render to texture. I'm going to go into my low poly. I'm going to reset my cage because we were missing part of that, and I'm going to use the push here using the left viewport so I can see what's going on, and just a simple push it up. That will do the job. Now, before I render it out, we need to actually illuminate the box in some way. So we'll add a light to our scene. We want to use a skylight so that it's illuminating it from all sides, and we want it to cast shadows. At the minute I've got my samples on as 4, which will be really fast, but not very good quality, just to make sure that everything is looking okay. I'm going to add in a plane, so that the light from below isn't illuminating the box, because we don't really want light from everywhere. We want light from the sort of top half, and that looks a lot more natural. Unless of course your object is going to be placed in several ways up, in which case you probably don't want to do that. I'm going to change the colour because that will do my head in. And the other thing we need to change now is, rather frustratingly, our object is going to cast shadows anywhere that's kind of gone in. So we see the middle bits. Anything that's gone into our original geometry is going to cast a shadow on itself. So we want to stop this object from casting shadows. So we right click, Object Properties, and we want to turn off Cast Shadows, so I've already unticked it, this one here. If you turn off Renderable, then you won't even be able to do the render to texture, so just Cast Shadows is all we want to turn off. Okay, in our render to texture dialog, bring that up. If you've got normal map still in there, just delete that, add a new one. We want Shadows map. Make sure your path is where you want it to be. There. Yes, I'll save over it. 1024, hit render. Okay, so this is what it's looking like. Couple of problems. Firstly, it seems that this must be below the plane because it's been lit up very brightly. This should be very black. Other than that, it's pretty good. Just the grain we need to fix by increasing the number of samples. So let's make those changes now. So I'll push my ground down a little bit. I wonder if we can actually see that that's below it. Not really. We'll just have to assume that I'm right in what I say. There we go. That should hopefully be low enough. And change our skylight to be 12 samples should be enough. And let's go again. Okay, so I've rendered that out, and that's looking pretty good. It's still a little bit grainy. If I zoom in, you can see that. Rather than rendering it again, which would be ideal, I'm just going to use a smart blur with settings that I just sorted out, and that seems to do about the job. So I'll save that out now, and I'll re-render my normal map again with the new K. Okay, so I plugged in my my ambient occlusion into the diffuse slot and the normal map into the bump slot. We're looking pretty good. That is it. There's still our four-sided, six-sided box with those two things, and it's pretty convincing. So very powerful, being able to do high poly to low poly bake. That's everything for this video. The next and last video I'll be going over the edit UVs window, tips and tricks in there, so see you there. Thanks for watching.